All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Raw and Relentless. I got my buddy Sam on with me. Sam, how you doing, bud?
Doing well, man. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. Why don't you
Of
tell
course.
everybody a little bit about yourself, what you're doing, what you're working on, and we'll kick it off.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to try to keep it brief. I know I get a little long-winded with my background. So, I grew up in Canada, in Toronto, Canada, and
Mm,
I was the guy that was very studious, very kind of popular in school. Grew up, chasing the education and wanting to be super successful in school and getting into a good school and getting good grades and things like that. And alongside that, going through high school, especially, it was just the popular kid, right? I mean, I was going
yeah.
through that phase, and once I graduated high school and went on to college, studied engineering. And that was going to be my path. I was going to be a mechanical engineer. I was going to go get a job and work, however long I needed to work, continue to climb and see where the path takes me. And that was going to be it. That was going to be it for me. It didn't really have an end in sight. It was just like, this is what I got to do, right? It's, you got to go to
Hmm.
school and get a job and do all that. Um, Fast forward a couple years into it, my wife and I, she came out here to San Francisco for school, and I ended up we got married, and then I joined her shortly thereafter, and that was kind of the beginning of my just opened up my eyes and my ears to a brand new world. Just being in a different country, different location, as you know, the Bay Area is just highly competitive. A lot
Hmm.
of great folks live out here, and that was kind of my gateway to becoming a little bit better at my vision and what I wanted in life. So still ended up on the same path. Kept that out of school. I had a really good construction job and continued with that, and then switched over to becoming a an employee at a local utility company here in the Bay Area. And that was it. As soon as I got hired on, the first day I told my boss, I was like, I'm coming for your job. It was one of those situations, right? It's like, yeah, it's great that I'm hired, but it's like, don't think that this is the end goal, right? I was going to
Yeah.
climb the corporate ladder. Fast forward 10 years into the job, got introduced to real estate in 2017, 2018, and ended up getting into investment properties, first obviously starting with single family, turnkey rental, then got introduced to becoming an LP in a syndication. And from there, that was kind of my wake up call. I was like, all right, if you got to be successful, you got to go big. You got to scale.
Hmm.
You got to be able to kind of stack the chips, so to speak, much faster than what I was doing.
Hmm.
So that was kind of my initial kind of introduction to real estate. And I still do real estate. Obviously, as you know, the past couple of years, transaction volume has been super slow. So we haven't been very active in real estate, but I still love real estate. We still put money into other syndications and other deals.
Hmm.
Um, I want to say about 8 months ago, 9 months ago, I was like, all right, this real estate thing is super slow and it's going to be a long game. But I'm still young. I wanted to kind of get into a little more action, if you would. I was like, I've got energy. I've got time on my hands, and I could deploy my time and my skills into something that could be a cash flowing opportunity. So I started doing some research into buying local businesses, and essentially what we're doing is we were buying small businesses, expanding, rolling them up, and we're going to get them ready to either sell partially or complete exit within the next 3 to 5 years. So that's the goal. Meanwhile, all the proceeds from those, uh, ventures, they're going to end up in real assets like real estate and things like that. So that's the goal. That's where we're headed. Real estate's always going to be part of our portfolio, but you know right now focused on growing businesses and looking for opportunities for investment in real estate.
Bro, there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah, and I tried to keep it brief. Like I said, I could go on for
um,
hours.
so you grew up in Canada. Is your wife from the States?
No, so we both grew up in Toronto, but
Okay.
we had never crossed paths. I mean, we crossed paths 2 or 3 months before she moved down here to the U.S. To go to law
Mhm.
school. So
Mhm.
oddly enough, we met, and I was. She tells the story much better, but I was not going to give up on on her, and so she ended up moving out here. We did long distance for 3 years, and then once she was done school, we got married, and then I moved down.
Nice. And so when you moved out this way to San Fran, and what kind of construction were you doing?
Yeah, so I was in with a company called Kiewit Infrastructure,
Oh, yeah. I know
huge,
Kiewit. They're huge. They're massive.
heavy civil construction. Yeah, so I was
Yeah.
basically the way it works is you go through the ranks. I was an engineer, which they love, obviously, right? You get hired on as what they call a field engineer, and you kind of work your way up. Superintendent
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
project director, project manager, project director, and sky's the limit, obviously, right? But yeah,
Mhm.
so the business model is projects all over the world. You could end up anywhere, and you're going.
Mhm.
And that's exactly what happened to me when I moved down to the Bay Area. I was a Canadian guy moving to the States, and they had a project up in Alberta, Canada, which is in the oil fields. And it was
Mm.
easy for me to go up there because I didn't need a visa to go work in Canada. And guess
Sure.
where I went? I was on for 21 days, I think 21 and 8, something like that, right? So 21 days away, living on camp on site, and then back home for 8, 9 days.
The Alberta site was what were you guys doing there?
As oil fields, so we were part of the processing plant. We were building that
Okay.
facility for, I believe it was Exxon, if I'm not mistaken.
Is that part of the tar sands?
It is, yeah, it is way
Yeah.
up north in Alberta. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, we were, our construction company was part of the that tar sands that comes down from, Canada is refined here locally in Whiting, Indiana at a BP refinery.
Gotcha.
And so they did a massive expansion. They started it in '08. I think it was 2008. They started the expansion.
Yep.
And to be able to refine all of that tar sand coming down from Canada, I think this is, I don't think this is public information. I don't think they've actually released like what the total cost was, but originally that project was supposed to cost 3 billion to do because they had to build like a coker and all of this other stuff to
Yep.
handle that stuff, and it ended up costing 14 billion in the end because
That's crazy.
their yeah, their safety protocols are so stringent there,
Yep.
right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
the BP refinery in Whiting is basically built on Lake Michigan,
Yeah.
right? And so there's over 100 years of infrastructure that's underneath that refinery that they've just either, when they build something new, they just bulldoze it down and just build right on top of it.
Yeah.
And when
Absolutely.
you're expanding a plant like that, you come across a lot of things that could cause, problems further down the road. But
Yeah.
it was a fantastic project for this region because when '08 happened during the crash, um, there was literally no work going on other than that. So that
Yeah.
basically kept this whole area afloat. It employed, I think it was something crazy, like I don't know, like 15 over 15,000 contractors
Yeah.
for that one project.
No, it's right. It's the sheer size of these projects, it's insane, right? I mean, it's not even just doing the work itself of whether you're extracting or processing, refining.
Hmm.
It's everything that leads up to it. For
Yep.
example, in our site, right? I mean, obviously there's a lot of the environmental issues that we have to deal with, and then you got the site clearing, and you got to get ready
Hmm.
for people to actually get there. It just creates so many jobs, so many opportunities
Yeah.
for a lot of folks, right? And then once you're in construction, and you're doing all that work, you got the foods, you got the cleaning services, just so on and so forth, right? It's pretty incredible to see the operations and just the amount of money that's being spent and how smooth everything has to go. It's fantastic. I mean,
Yeah.
it was really cool to see. And obviously, like we worked. what was it like? We left at 5 a.m., got back at 6 or 7, right? Every single day. So it's like you're living on camp, just going to work and coming back. So it's like, but they tried to make it a fun place to be, but it's like, man, it's you're there
Yeah.
for work. You're there, you know exactly
Yeah.
why you're there, and it's like the guys. It was funny because it was perfect for single, women, men, whoever, right? Just because a lot of the folks that I worked with, they were single, younger, and they basically didn't own a property, didn't pay rent.
Mm.
So all they did was the 8 or 9 days that they were off, they would just travel the world and they just come right back to work.
Oh,
It was
okay.
fantastic, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, or just living at home with mom, dad, and like instead of going home, they would just like, yeah, I'm going to Australia for X number of days, and I'll be back,
Sure.
back at work whenever I
Yeah.
got to be back, which is amazing for them,
And
right?
plus you're making bank, right?
Oh
Those
my
21
god,
days, you're making stupid money because you're
zero
working
expense.
14-hour
Yeah,
days.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So no, it was good because uh, it's interesting because they, I got a base salary as an employee, and then once you get to these job sites, like I got a 50-60% uplift going there, right? So it's like
Mhm.
immediately you see a lot more money in the bank account, right? But it just, as you know, it just takes a toll on you, right? I mean, that's not, if
Yeah.
that's not the life you want to live, especially if you're married and or kids and so on and so forth. It's like some of these guys were making like four or $500,000, but they saw their wives, their kids, barely ever, right? But it's like they were
Right.
okay with that. It was just like
Right.
money's going home. They're living an amazing life. It's like, I go see them whenever I can, but that definitely was not the life that I wanted to live. So
Yeah, no, have you watched that show Landman at all?
no, I don't think I've heard of
Ah,
it. Yeah.
it's such a good show. It's a Taylor Sheridan show who's
Okay.
Taylor Sheridan wrote Yellowstone and all that stuff.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
he wrote this show, but this show is about the Texas oil fields and the guys that gotta work down there in the oil fields that are doing the drilling with the, what do they call those jack pumps, those hammers that go back and forth
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
whatever. But same thing, like what they're there, like, they got to maintain these pumps, and most of these pumps are over 100 years old
Yeah.
because the
That's right.
technology really hasn't. The technology is so good they didn't really need to improve
Yep.
it because they'll
It, wo-
last
it
forever, but they
works.
got to
That's right.
maintain them. It
Yep.
works, and but these guys got to be out in these fields for days,
Yeah.
fixing these things or maintaining them or whatever. Yeah, the whole oil industry is like it's a life commitment when you're in that
100%.
industry.
That's right.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's because it pays well. I mean, relatively speaking,
Mhm.
it's just like it just keeps you in like a drug. It just like
Yeah.
because like once you leave, it's like your salary is cutting a third,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like, all right, I don't want to go back to that kind of thing, right? But
Right.
luckily for me, I knew that wasn't the life that I wanted to live, and
Mhm.
not that money was no object. It was like it helped me identify other opportunities that helped me get to my goals much sooner and much easier than I thought. And
Mhm.
but the rest of the guys is just like never even tried, right? It was just like I said, it was like they're living a good life, whether they're making money or they're traveling the world, and it was like it just wasn't a big deal for them.
How long were you part of Kiewit? How long did you do that job
I was there
for?
for 4 years,
Okay.
4 years straight out of school, right? So it's like
Yeah.
again, '08 graduated high school, graduated around '08, '09 graduated, and it was. I tell this story. It was like we had a career fair at my school. Did not want to go, but my
Mhm.
friends that I hung out with, they were also equally studious, and there's like, no, we're gonna go find ourselves a job. I was like, okay.
Mhm.
Hesitantly, I went. I was like I'm not gonna find anything. This is dumb, right? It's like I walk in, spoke to one person. It ended up being the recruiter, the head recruiter at Kiewit. Loved talking to her. She absolutely loved my personality, whatever it was about me. And I was like, she's like, okay, I'm gonna set you up with an interview on the spot. I was like, okay, great. So I'm done here. I'm leaving. I'll see you guys later. So that was like the only company I spoke to, the only person I spoke to, and it was just like I've never had an issue getting a job, and I say that kind of obviously I've applied for jobs and haven't gotten them, but it was just like once I'm in front of somebody, like the interviews and things like that, I've gotten the job like almost 100% of the time. So it's like that's kind of been my journey through this working thing,
Mhm.
and like it ended up being a thing where I was like, okay, this is too easy, right? This is kind of
Mhm.
like I can do this with my eyes closed. But at the same time, it's just like, is this really what I want? This is not, I don't want to continue to interview and be interviewed for a position that I'm going to hate in, 6, 9, 12 months. So
Right.
let's change
Right.
something about that.
Yeah, especially a position that ages you very fast.
Big time. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's right. That's right.
So when you got the job with Kiewit, were you able to get like a work visa? Is that how you're able to come to the States?
Yeah. So again, just some of these things that happen in life. I don't know how much you believe in things happen
Destiny.
for a reason, right? Yeah.
Mm.
It's like eh, getting that engineering degree did not help me become a good engineer. Did not help me get an engineering job. What it did do is it opened up doors. And what I mean by that is, it helped me get that first job at Kiewit, which they were looking for engineers. Guess what? I had on paper, I was an engineer. And in addition, when I did move down to the U.S., in order to get a work visa, there's something called a TN visa. So
Mm.
essentially, it's a temporary work visa through the NAFTA rules between U.S. and Canada, and obviously Mexico, where the U.S. welcomes professionals like engineers, lawyers, doctors, and other positions. If you hold a particular degree, and if your job is tied to that degree, yeah, come on in. You can work here for 3 years temporarily. No big deal, right? So that's again the doors that opened for me to do that was exactly that. It was just like, all right, I'm not doing any engineering work. I'm not, I'm not in my field. I'm not like practicing, but it's like it just opened so many doors.
Sure.
Just because
Sure.
on paper, I'm like I'm an engineer. I got this degree that somebody thinks is important, um, and there's a third component to it, and I think what it did help with was just kind of changes the way you think. And a lot of engineers have this, but they don't necessarily practice it. Is I'm not like a number cruncher. I'm good with numbers, obviously, but it's like appli application of those numbers and what information means. Like to me,
Hmm.
that really helped me kind of get ahead of a lot of people, just because I had that little extra application in mind of, all right,
Right.
you're asking me a question and I need to solve for something, but it's like, I know you're not asking me what does 2 plus 2 equal. It's more so of let's look at this number, this problem, and come up with a number of solutions, and what's the
Yeah.
best solution that works for that problem,
Right.
right? So that's
Right.
kind of like the way you think also helped me. But long answer to your question of, as a professional, I was able to get a temporary work visa to be in the US.
Okay. And then when did you?
Yeah.
I assume now you're a citizen, right?
Yeah, so we went through the process. So my wife, like I said, she's an attorney, and through her one of her employees, we were able to become get our green card, and then went through the process of becoming U.S. citizens. Only I want to say like 3 years ago. So
Oh wow.
this past election, it was kind of our first time ever being able to vote, which was super exciting.
So when did you guys? How long did that process actually take? I've always been curious about that because I hear that it's like years to actually become a citizen in the U.S.
Yeah, so the professional visa that we got, the professional way of getting a green card, that took about, call it year and a half. It was
Hmm.
relatively quick, and aside from that, it's you go through the same process with once you have your green card. It's you got to be you got to wait 5 years essentially, and out of the 5 years, you have to be in the U.S. at least three of the five. So in aggregate, you got to be in the U.S. 3 years out of the five. And for us, like, we live here, we work here, so it's easy for us to kind of show that 3 years. But
Hmm.
it's a pretty smooth process. And then from the 5 years, then you get to apply, and then that takes another year. So all in all, probably 5, 6, 7, between 7 and 8 years, give or take, from
Wow.
start to finish.
Wow.
Yeah. But once
Yeah.
you're
Now.
through it, it's like, you know, you're good,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we could have
Right.
technically we could have stayed on a green card, and there's no reason why for us to kind of get a citizenship. We know a
Hmm.
lot of people who just stay on the green card, but
Hmm.
you know, for us, it was more like, this is now our life. This is where we're
Hmm.
gonna live. This is where we're gonna practice, and it just makes sense for us to be citizens. And we obviously love the country, love everything that's brought us, and why not?
Yeah. And now Canada might become the 51st state.
I have mixed feelings about that, but that would be exciting. That would be exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
It does not mean that I would move back to Canada or the 51st state.
Right, right. Yeah, I don't think that Canada's government's going to let that happen.
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot there. It's a longer term
Hmm.
goal, I guess, if you would, if it were to
Yeah,
ever happen.
yeah.
But no.
Uh, so how did you get introduced into real estate? From because you went from mechanical engineer, then you went to a utility company, and then now like that's a pretty 180-degree shift to go from
Yeah.
engineering to now investments, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's literally, it has, I don't know how people have like wake up calls and things like that. I mean, it doesn't happen naturally. And for me, it was, and in my opinion, this happens because of who you surround yourself with. And I just happened to have a few coworkers around where I worked, that they started down this process. They had met some folks that do real estate and have gotten started. They were a couple of years ahead of me and introduced me to real estate, and just constantly talked about the benefits and the upside of real estate and how amazing of an investment opportunity it is, and just how different it could be from other investments like a stock market and things like that. So just being
Mhm.
able to kind of get that information from someone that's physically in front of you, that's kind of telling you how it is, as opposed to some folks maybe nowadays they might see it on social media, on on TV, which it's rare, but it's whatever you're exposed to. And I had the privilege of being around some folks that actually did it and did it successfully, and it was like, great, this is yet another thing that I like. I've heard about it. Like, I've seen my parents, like, they own homes and it appreciates, and I know
Mhm.
some uncles and friends who own real estate, and seemingly they're happy, they're doing well for themselves. So it's like, it's one of those things, like, okay, why not me, right? It's like,
Mhm.
now I'm getting all this information, and it's
Mhm.
it's coming in, but what am I doing about it, right? It's like, it can't just go
Right.
in and stay here. It's like, now it needs to go. I need to go process it, right? I need to go
Yeah.
do something with it, right? So it's kind of my way of like, all right, that's all great. I hear you, and am I going to do anything about it? Am I going to just sit on it, or am I going to act on this? Which I'm happy that I acted on it. Obviously, it hasn't been always great, but it's been more great than not.
Mm. And you're mostly doing well, you were when you were introduced, it was multifamily is what you were introduced to?
No, so I was actually introduced to turnkey single family rental properties, and Cleveland and Indianapolis. I've owned properties there,
Mhm.
both of those cities, and it was the plan was always, so the first property that we bought was $65,000. It was a Section 8 property. Bought it for cash. It was cash flowing, 500-600 bucks a month, just because it's everything's cheaper out there. And
Mhm.
the goal was, we were going to save 65,000 a year, every single year for the next 10 years, and we're going to buy 10 of those. That was the plan,
Mm.
and which we did.
Mm.
So the first one we bought, and then refinanced out of that, because we bought it cash. Refinanced out of that, bought the second one, and then it was just going to kind of accumulate over time.
Sure.
That was the goal, right? I mean, that was the goal, and uh, seemed like a no brainer. We were cash flowing, money's going in the bank account. Why even worry about it, right? But at some point, we got introduced to syndication. It was a 150 unit apartment complex in Georgia,
Mm.
and my wife, being an attorney, she was on the other side of these deals, where like her clients are coming to her, asking her to put the documents together for these syndications
Mhm.
and these legal entities and things like that. So she was always exposed to all these things, right? But it's just like, now we have this opportunity in front of us that someone's asking us, like, hey, do you guys want to get involved, right? So it's like, it
Mhm.
was it was more of a, we kind of felt a little more comfortable, because we knew what we were getting into, because we
Mhm.
had done smaller scale real estate. Because we had some properties. It's like, hey, this thing has been working out. Why not this other bigger scale
Mhm.
thing that we're going to get into, right? So reviewed the documents, and went through due diligence, and got involved as a limited partner. It was just one of those things that we both have jobs. We're now starting to think about having kids, buying a house, upgrading our,
Mhm.
our lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
buying another car and stuff like that. It's like, we don't have time to go and like be landlords. Like, why not become a limited partner
Mm-hmm.
and be able to kind of get into these properties? Like, yeah, we're just going to cash flow a few $100 a month. We're just going to put some money in and cash flow a few $100 a month. And why not? That was
For
kind of
doing
like the
nothing.
journey for doing virtually nothing, right? I mean, as you
Yeah.
know, it's not
Mm-hmm.
it's not absolutely nothing, but it's virtually nothing. So again, got introduced to it, loved the idea, I still do, and yeah, that was it.
Do you think that these same opportunities exist in Canada, or do you think it's more of an American thing?
Uh, Great question, and I will give you my experience. And we have properties in Canada. We have a property in Toronto. Actually, it's a condo in Canada. So I did the math one time, and in order for us to break even on that property that we bought, we would have had to put down 53% as down payment for us to just break even, right? As a rental
Jeez.
property. So mind you, it's a prime location. It's a condo. It's got the HOA fees and things like that, right? Granted, but
Mm-hmm.
it's still, in order for us to cash flow a property, and I've done the math on a lot of properties in Canada. On the flip side, I do think, and I know folks who have invested in properties in secondary but mostly tertiary markets, you are able to get some better deals where
Mm-hmm.
your your cost bases are much lower, and
Mm-hmm.
they're more value add than turnkey,
Mm-hmm.
obviously. So from that standpoint, it may make more sense, but we're still not talking the numbers that you guys, obviously, like in the Midwest, or
Mm-hmm.
even the some of the southern states that we get to see here in the U.S. It's nowhere near those.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I know the inverse of that is I know like if you're an American business doing business in Canada, it's very hard to get your money out of Canada
yeah.
back into the states.
Yeah, without paying taxes as well, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I think
Mhm.
there's as much as we want to think that we're in this NAFTA world, it doesn't quite work that
Yeah.
well. But I haven't done business kind of on the flip side, but yeah, I
Mhm.
totally believe it. Completely
Yeah.
believe that.
We did a construction project in Canada, and I think it took us over 6 months just to get our money across the border.
That's crazy.
And I mean, when I say money across the border, it's not like we're, like, throwing it in a truck and bringing it over. It's
Yeah,
just a
that's right.
wire. It's just a
That's right.
wire,
Yeah.
you know?
No, that's right. That's right. Yeah, and I mean, nowadays we have there's easier ways to get money across, obviously, but it's
Mhm.
like, yeah, it's
Mhm.
still cross border transactions, right? So it's
Yeah.
a different level of scrutiny that goes
Yeah.
into it. So no, that's right.
And now you're venturing into, businesses. So what type of businesses are you getting involved in and acquiring?
Dude, so I'm like, again, a bit of a long-winded answer, but I'm being in the Bay Area. I've always loved the high tech, but
Mhm.
I've just
Mhm.
never been good at it, or never like pursued it. So I kind of feel like, so I'm like 42 now. I'm like, I'm not gonna go back and like try to stay up to date with these like younger generation and things like that. So I like boring businesses. And what
Mm.
I mean boring, meaning it doesn't require you to have, high tech IQ or anything like that, right? And it's just like everyday services. And I do
Mhm.
like services. I don't necessarily like selling products. So as far as types of businesses, home service. So we started with, so the idea is starting with a junk removal business, which I have a amazing partner in Canada, and my brother-in-law who's helping us out, and the three of us kind of started this venture. The idea is we're doing junk removal business. We're buying the small junk removal businesses in the area, and we're using, my obviously with my partner's help, his expertise to kind of grow these things,
Mm.
and just kind of an aggregate to be able to put these businesses together. And the reason I like doing that is mostly because we're going to do a corporate structure. It's going to be everything is going to be under our corporate umbrella.
Mhm.
But when you look at the math with these things, 2 plus 2 doesn't equal 4. 2 plus 2 equals 10. Meaning you're
Mhm.
able to do it at a corporate kind of structure, we're able to streamline and centralize a lot of the operations. Whereas
Hmm.
all we're having to worry about is just the different locations that, they've got the physical assets running in on the ground. So it so far has been great. It's been a great learning opportunity. We're only a few months in, but we've got our sights on at least one more this year, one more acquisition, but definitely looking at two more in the next few weeks to be able to acquire, and looking forward to growing it. And in 2, 3, 5 years, depending on how this thing goes, I'm more interested in doing other types of businesses that complement this one, or
Yep.
can actually kind of roll it up and just kind of as an aggregate be able to provide, if a homeowner calls me, it's, I'm going to be able to give them services for a number of services. And it's like, you're coming to us for
Hmm.
one-stop shop, as opposed to just kind of going to different companies for different needs, right? We haven't
Yeah.
figured out. I like them all, right? I mean, it's people talk about the plumbers, electricians, and so on and so
Yep.
forth. It's
Hmm.
like they're all great. It's just a matter of, I want to see how well this thing goes, and where I can
Hmm.
apply my skills and knowledge to what the next one will look like, and do a little more due diligence on the next ones. But right now, I've got the focus to kind of acquire, expand, and grow the ones that we've got, and be able to kind of get them sale ready, if you would.
Yeah, that's great. I had Stephen Montgomery on my podcast a few weeks ago,
Yeah,
and he started with a painting business. He opened his own painting business,
love that.
grew it, scaled it to multiple locations, franchised it, then started buying other type businesses. He owns a window cleaning business.
Love
He
that.
owns a home repair business, and he's creating franchise models out of all of that. Kind of like
Yeah,
exactly what you're doing is he's like stacking and racking all of these
100%.
different businesses. And that's actually what I'm trying to do too with a lot of my businesses,
Yeah.
because there's actually a guy on social media that explains this really well from a private equity standpoint. So if you go out and you buy, let's just use a real rough example. Let's say you go out and you buy a HVAC company,
Yep.
and depending on their EBITDA,
Hmm.
at a certain EBITDA level, your multiplier goes up, right? So usually, typically for private equity, it's about 2.5 million. When your
Yep.
EBITDA is around 2.5 million, you become what's called a platform company, right? And that platform company becomes like the anchor business that can trade at a high multiple of, let's just say, 10x, right?
Right.
So if your EBITDA is 2.5 million, it'll trade at 25 million. Then what these guys do is they'll go out and they'll buy other smaller HVAC companies that are maybe only trading at like 5x because they're smaller, because their EBITDA is
That's
smaller.
right.
But once they flow underneath that platform company's umbrella, they immediately become 10x. So there's automatically an equity upswing right at closing.
That's right.
So I mean, it's amazing because now you can grow this thing from one business, by multiple businesses, 5 or 6 businesses doing the same or similar things, roll it up under the platform. And what started as 25 million could be 100 million before you know it.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, that's why I said 2 plus 2 doesn't equal 4; it equals
Right.
10, right? It's like
Yeah.
it's exactly that, right? I mean, it's. I don't know anyone who likes a lower risk business. Where what I mean by that, if you've got your revenue growth, and obviously your EBITDA, your bottom line is much larger than if you got a small single operator business. I mean, I would rather go with a bigger guy where, like, I know he's got scale, or he or she,
Yeah.
I know they've got scale, they've got
Yeah.
the backing, they've got the capital, they've got the systems, processes in place. Rather go with that person, as opposed to buying a business that's got lower margins and things like that. But that's exactly where the opportunity comes in my opinion, is for guys like me and you, right, that are trying to acquire these businesses. Is I'm willing to put in the work to get those small businesses, because a lot of these owners that I talk to, they don't have that, I don't say that mindset or the drive, but it's more so of they don't know the know-how. They don't know
Yep.
exactly what you just described. Not many people know about, right? Or maybe I should
Yep.
say, you know, I don't even want to give it a number, but it's like a lot of business owners, small business owners, don't know that. Or
Yep.
if they do that, they don't care to get there. They don't have the
Right.
means to get there. All they care
Mhm.
about is they just want to pay the bills, or they're
Mhm.
tired at this point and they just want to get out. They want to go spend more
Yep.
time with family. They want to go do something else, and which is great. Those are the opportunities that we can come across in that the folks that are not willing to take that business to the next level. Where if you come in, and we're able to buy that business at a good price and be able to
Mhm.
either roll it up or actually put in some elbow grease and get it to the next level. I mean, that's where the value is added, right? I mean, similar to real estate, when we talk about value add
Yeah.
properties, it's it's fine having it's fine having to clip coupons, right? I mean, I'm okay with that. I
Mhm.
mean,
Mhm.
but imagine now having to grow that and be able to grow that equity and be able to not only do that but actually stack multiple of them on top. I
Yep.
mean, scaling these things could be quite profitable.
I agree. I mean, that's my goal too. I'm doing the same exact thing. I mean, it applies in the just as one of my businesses is gyms. I mean, most of my
Yeah,
listeners know I own gyms, and it works the same exact way in a gym. You know, if you've got 1 or 2 units and you want to get to your goal should be to get to like five, right? 5 units, and now private equity starts really looking at you.
yeah,
Um, and when you get your multiple, your EBITDA to a certain point, uh, you now can go from trading at 3 times EBITDA to 8 times EBITDA very quickly.
yeah.
And that is how you uh, scale very quickly, and that is how uh, you take your business to a whole nother level. Now, when I say this, I think it sounds really good, right? Oh
And
man, I
easy,
can.
and easy,
It is.
right?
It is
That's right.
not
Yeah,
easy.
that's
It
right.
is not because I think this is my opinion. I would like to know your opinion. My personal opinion. I think the number one hardest thing in business is building your bench, building your team. You need to
100%.
have a solid team to be able to do these kind of numbers because if you've got a bunch of fuck offs working for you, you will never, ever, ever get to that
That's right.
level.
No,
And
that's
it
right.
is a skill and it is a, uh, I don't even know the other word I want to use, but it is a skill to hire right.
Yeah, and that's the difference, in my opinion, of between like business owners and business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, right? It's like, to me,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of like the levels, right? Business
Mm-hmm.
owner is just like one man show, one person show, and it's like they're doing a lot of the work, they're in the grind every single day, right? Entrepreneur is like they got a little more skill, they can scale up that business to a certain degree,
Yeah.
to a certain level. But then when you become a leader, that's really, in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I want to achieve, is like my role will be and should be, long term, is to be a leader for my company. It's
Yep.
not to be the guy that's going to go door to door and try to sell. Yeah, I'm going to have to
Mm-hmm.
do that at some point, but
Mhm,
ultimate
mhm.
goal for me as a CEO of my company is to be a good leader, is to be able
Yep.
to empower my team to be able to kind of produce what we need. And I'll be honest, one of the things that I really would, one of the questions that I ask is, the interests need to align. And what I mean by that is not necessarily, I want $1 million, I want you to have $1 million. It's not so much that. It's we're here to grow, and we're here to take this thing, whatever this thing is, to the next level, right? If that's
Mhm.
not what you're willing to do, then I need to know that today, so that we can make different decisions for the business. And maybe this role is not the right one for you, but like I said, ultimately, it's I'm more of a I'm more of a person that I want to empower those around us, because we go so much
Yeah.
further together than if I were to
Yeah.
just, this is what you shall do, because I'm going to be doing that all day every day, as opposed to if I kind of build that team around me that that understands the goal, that understands how I operate, and what the
Mhm.
end results that we're looking for, without having to tell them what to do. It's like they become innovative, they become creative, and they just
Yeah.
like take our business to the next level. I am at some point, I am going to be replaced by somebody smarter,
Yeah.
probably even younger, right? And
Yeah.
and more experienced in what I do, just because there's only so much I know and I could learn. But there are so many other people out there that are smarter than me, that could do this job much better.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. And that's actually something I'm like that's a skill and a trait that I'm really trying to work on myself, and I tell you one of the hardest ones for me is they always say to be a great leader, like you were just saying, to empower the people around you. to make decisions and do what's best for the company and whatnot is when a staff member comes to you with a problem, your response as a leader should be, okay, how would you handle this?
100%.
Right. And then you get their feedback. But I think that what ends up happening is because, like I mean, I think you nailed it on the head: business owner, entrepreneur, leader. What ends up happening is from the business owner stage to the entrepreneur stage, you are the lead troubleshooter every day,
Big time.
24/7. So when somebody comes from you with a problem, your initial reaction is always to be like, okay, let's do this, this, and this, and this. When your reaction should actually be, okay, how would you handle this?
That's right.
What do you want to do? It's very, very hard to shift away from that mindset because you're so programmed to just solve problems every day on the like
Yeah,
instantly,
that's right.
because you need to move on to the next thing, the next solution. You need to move on to the next business idea or whatever that is. So you don't want to spend a lot of time building your staff up, but that is the most important thing that you should be doing, is building your staff up. And I'm guilty of that to this day. Like I still, my staff members come to me things and I'm like, all right, well, let's just do this, this, and this.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right. So here's what yet another thing I learned through my my journey as being an employee was exactly that, right? It's and as I became, as I went higher and higher in the company, that it's obviously, as you said it, it's like your immediate reaction is do XYZ, right? And not
Yep.
only that, what I found is what I did myself was like, all right, I'm going to do this myself. It's like, move aside. This needs to get done. I'm going to go do it myself, handle it myself. And once it's done, and then hand it back to the person, right? It's like, it's kind of like, for those that have kids, it's one of those things like, hey, dad, can you help me with this? It's like, yeah, you want to open a jar? Here you go, open a jar and give it
Mm-hmm,
back to them,
mm-hmm,
as opposed
mm-hmm.
to, let's come up with ways how you can do it. Maybe, apply different ways of like opening a stuck jar kind of thing, right? It's like that's a bad example, uh, but what I found is one of my coaches kind of has this the rule, the 1-3-1 rule. Call it whatever you want, right? It's got, you've got the problem, right? And what I really like is that the three solution approach, right? It's like, all right, identify the problem, come up with three or more solutions, right? But
Mhm,
then
mhm.
the final step is propose one of those solutions to me, right? Like, if you follow those steps, and if somebody comes to you, and that's exactly what we did when I was when I was a leader in as an employee, was if there were folks who would only come to me where they were just like, Sam, I absolutely cannot solve this problem, right? I was like, okay, great, let's sit down and come up with, let's dissect it together and figure out how things can get done. But a lot of times it was the question of like, what are the solutions? What are the ramifications? What are the some of the risks we need to mitigate? But it's like, okay, based on that, which one do you think is the best option for not only for what you're working on, but also for the company, for the greater good, right?
Mhm,
It's like
mhm.
when that's been proposed, like, okay, you've got my support. Let's do it, right? I mean, to me, that's a
Mm.
much better approach than go call this person, do this other thing, tell them I
Yep,
sent you, right?
yep,
Because that only
yep,
goes so far, and
yep.
that does not help anyone grow in what they're doing, or just even their future self.
It actually occupies your time way more,
100%.
because what ends up happening is, like you're trying to achieve the same thing as me. The more you grow, the more people are going to start coming to you with problems. And so you can't utilize your time growing the business because your time is being spent being the problem solver
Yep.
day in and day out,
No,
And I
that's right.
really like that 1-3-1 solution. That is very, very cool. I like that idea.
Yeah, so that's by Dan Martell. I don't know if for
Yeah, yeah,
those who
yeah.
follow him, yeah, he's got that rule that he practices himself. But I think it's a simple way to put it. But in practice, if you think about it, it's like you identify a problem, come up with X number of solutions, come up with whatever, right? But what I
Mhm.
also like is like, I want to know, out of those solutions, I don't necessarily need to know, but it's like, have you thought about the pluses and minuses of each, right? But it's like the last step should be, all right, propose one of those. It's like, cool. Now you know what you're doing, right? Then the next time it's like, all right, so if you continue to apply that, and it's like, your time is now freed up. You're no longer involved in a lot of those decision making processes, and yeah, of
Yep.
course, it empowers the team. And guess how much faster and bigger you're going to grow having 10 of those people
Yeah.
working with you as opposed to you just doing it every single day.
I can't remember who wrote the book. Because I've read it and I'm terrible at remembering names, but it's Who, Not How.
Yeah,
Have you read that book?
I have not. No, I have not. It's sitting
That
on
is a
my shelf. Yeah, I just buy them
um,
and kind of line them up.
yeah. That is a phenomenal book because it discusses exactly what we're talking about. You should be hiring those people that can handle those problems and come up with solutions for you, because as a entrepreneur, as a leader, you should be at the 30,000 foot view, overlooking everything and seeing where the company is headed, not at the ground level, not at 10,000 feet. You're at 30,000 overlooking everything. And even like you said, Dan Martell is buy back your time. Buy back your time. It's all about hiring the right people to be able to solve these problems for you and manage your company as you lead it forward.
No, that's right. And if you think about it, I mean, I think you said it as well. Is how much of your time does it actually suck up when you try to solve problems?
Mm-hmm.
And before you know it, it's 2, 3, 4 p.m., 5 p.m., and it's like you haven't gotten anything done, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
of course, as a leader, as a CEO of a company, you are going to have to deal with issues and you are going to have to make
Mm-hmm.
decisions, right? But it's like it's just the
Mm-hmm.
different levels of problems that you have to deal with, and as you grow, obviously, you're going to be dealing with different problems than before. But yeah, that's super important, having the right people in place in the right positions to be able to kind of help the company grow and not just sustain, not just
Right.
do what it does every day and not go anywhere,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're business is hard. I think social media hypes it up and makes it look like it's
Big
super
time.
easy, and it's not. It's not. But it's
So
worth it. I
here,
mean, it's worth it if you could actually handle the digs and become, lack of a better word, relentless through it.
yeah, I mean, the suck is a thing, right? It's I
Mhm.
keep telling my wife is like, this sucks, but I love it, right? It's
Yeah.
I would not have it any other way, just because it forces you to do things that you didn't know you could do, and it
Yeah.
also puts you in situations where you now have to grow in order
Yeah.
to get better and kind of get through these things, and you just never know where the next problem is going to come from. There's no blueprint to running a business. There is no
Mhm.
blueprint to what issues you're going to come up with. And it's interesting. Every time I looked at even an investor or a business owner, immediate thought is this person knows what they're doing because they're a business owner. This person knows what they're doing.
Mhm.
They're amazing at it because they own a business or they operate, property or so on and so forth, right? But once you're in it, like, man, this sucks. Man,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I have no idea what I'm doing, but
Yeah.
it's great because I'm in it. It's not like I can, obviously I can get out, but it's like, this is amazing. Like, what have
Yeah.
I been doing my entire life? It's like just being comfortable, like sitting behind the desk and, answering a bunch of emails without any, personal, um,
Mhm.
like it doesn't matter what I do. Like worst case, I just get fired from this job, as opposed to, you know what I mean? Like now there's like real ramifications to your
Yeah.
actions and decision
Yeah.
making, right? It's just like this suck is real, and I
Yep.
absolutely love every single minute of it.
Yeah. I recently saw a video of Cody Sanchez. You know Cody Sanchez?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. She just posted a video the other day. She was giving a speech at some conference, and she said, let me tell you about my week. This is just my week, because for the listeners that know Cody Sanchez, she owns many, many different businesses. She said, my week was I've got one company that is undercapitalized and strapped for cash. I've got another company that is trying to take on jobs that they can't handle with the current cash flow. And I got another company that has just lost a key employee. So I'm sitting here and I'm doing all of these tours, giving talks, and I've got to deal with three different businesses with these problems and figuring out solutions and helping my staff work through them. And that's
Yeah.
literally business ownership day in and
Yeah.
day out.
It's not, I mean, it's not, for lack of a better word, it's not sexy by any means once you're
Yeah.
in it, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
obviously rewarding, but it's definitely not sexy. And that's what people miss. And that's what social media, to your point, hypes up a little too much. And that also goes along with real estate investing as well, is everyone talks about the beginning part of whether it's acquiring a property, acquiring a business, and they make it seem like that's the end goal. Whereas, in my
Mhm.
opinion, I've said this before, when it comes to real estate, especially, is like, the good deals are made by operators. Yes, you have to buy right. Yes, you have
Yep.
to have a good team, but it's like, if you're not there operating these properties, that's what the real work. Yeah, it's great that you close on this property. It's great that you close on this deal, that on this transaction, but it's like, guess what, your work actually just started. It's not like you didn't just finish, right? Like, don't just
Yep.
listen to social media. It's like, the goal is not to just buy business. The goal is not to just buy real estate. It's like, all right, now you have to execute on that business plan that you thought was great, but guess what? Day one, that could also be out the window, because maybe you made a mistake on one of your numbers. Maybe the conditions are different than what you thought. Maybe,
Mhm.
the list
Mhm.
goes on and on and on, right? So it's like,
Yep.
how good are you at solving problems? That's real. That's when things actually, you could go right or wrong. It's like,
Yep.
once the transaction closes, that's when real work actually starts.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, and it's I wouldn't say it's easy to close a transaction, it's not, but you are 100% right. Once that ink is on the paper, that's when the real work begins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's great. One of the things that I've that's helped me kind of through this whole thing has been, obviously, like, having my family behind me, and the
Mhm.
support that I've got, but just being able to kind of, and my wife does this really well, kind of separate the two, right? It's like
Mm.
business slash work, and family
Yeah.
life, and just kind of being able to take care of myself, and whether it's workouts, and take care of my body, my mind, and
Yeah.
just get back at it whenever I'm fresh, or just using that as an outlet to be able to kind of leave everything at the gym, take it out on the weights, and
Yeah.
just kind of
Yeah.
get back to it. Like, to me, if there was one thing that I would want to amplify, is that just taking care of yourself
Mhm.
is to me has been life changing.
I agree. One of my old coaches, that was one of the first things that he talked about is, he was big into working out. He's a world champ, a powerlifter. He was a world champion bodybuilder. When he went into business for himself, he basically took all of that and threw it to the wayside. He was eating McDonald's like several times a week
It's
and
so easy
let
to do.
himself go. And
Yep.
it's so easy to do. But he said once he like kind of kicked himself in the head and was like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Yeah.
And he started working out again. He actually started making better business decisions, feeling better about himself, getting back on track. And I agree. And I'm pretty religious and diligent about the food I eat and me working out, and I think it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, I don't, obviously, like, I don't have the data in front of me, but I mean, I've done so much better ever since I started working out, paying attention to what I
Uh-huh.
eat. It's just, it, it's, it's not, like you said, it's become part of my daily routine. It's like, if I'm not sleeping, like, to me,
Yeah.
it's like, all right, if I'm not working out today, today's my workout day, right? It's like, what am
Yep.
I doing if I'm not working out? It's like, that takes priority, right? That's,
Yep. Yep.
from there, it's like my family and so on and so. But like I said, I go to the gym. Everything everything gets solved at the gym, so to
Yeah.
speak, and
Yeah.
just come out fresh, ready to go, ready to tackle the world's problems.
Sam, I could talk to you for another hour, buddy.
Likewise, man.
I really appreciate you coming on. Where can everyone get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got social media is probably the best place, both on LinkedIn as well as Instagram. I think Instagram is official Sam Khairi, and LinkedIn is just Sam Khairi. And email is sam@aftocapital.com. That's aftocapital.com.
Awesome. I'll make sure to put all that in the show notes. Everybody, go reach out to Sam, connect with him. Great guy, Sam. Thanks so much for coming on, man.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Bo. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.